Hey book lovers, welcome back to my channel. My name is Mar and happy fall everybody. I don't know about you guys, but for some reason when it comes to the last 4 months of the year, I am just a machine when it comes to reading books. I don't know what it is about fall, but this is the point of the year where I'm most excited about reading, especially when it comes to fantasy books. I've noticed that usually throughout the last few months of the year, most of the things I'm reading is fantasy. I don't know, fantasy just hits the most in the fall winter times. So for this video, I just thought I would give some fall reading recommendations, what I'm reading for fantasy fall and all of that. This first part of the video, I'm just going to tell you what books I'm planning on reading for fantasy fall this year. So the first series I want to get into is Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson. I want to get into my Brandon Sanderson journey era, and I heard that from a lot of people who are big fans of Brandon Sanderson. I've heard from them that the best place to start is with the Mistborn series because a lot of his novels and all that are interconnected, and that's a part of his Cosmere series and all that. So, or his Cosmere universe, world, whatever you want to call it. I have read one Brandon Sanderson book, and that is Yumi and the Nightmare Painter, and I believe that is also a part of the same universe. So I'm excited to get started on that one. The next series I'm planning on reading is the Red Rising series by Pierce Brown. So that one's more, I would say, sci fi rather than fantasy. I did buy all of the audiobooks on graphic audio, and so I need to get through them some point. I was reading Red Rising back in the spring, but I kind of just like sort of soft DNF'd it just because I wasn't feeling it. I think I got maybe halfway through the book and I was like, I think I'm gonna push it to fall. So I'm excited to read Red Rising. I've heard good things about that series. I'm really excited to listen to that series on audiobook. The next series I want to read is the Shatter Me series by Tahara Mafi. I read the first book and then I was planning on doing a video where I just like read the entire series sort of in one go. I haven't found time to do that yet, so hopefully I'll be able to do that within the next couple months or so. Again, don't know when I'm going to get to that. And then the last book I have is the Greenbone Saga series by Fonda Lee. So I read the first book, which is called Jade City. And that one took me quite a long time to read just because the world building in that one for me was just so complicated, even though it's like not complicated, but so much happens in that book that I was like, okay, I need to digest all of this. So the second book in that series is the Jade War. And so I have that. I got started on reading it, but it's just, again, I wasn't feeling it. I'm definitely a mood reader. So I'm hoping for this fall I can get back into it. I'm super excited to read that. And then finally, we sort of just have standalone novels that I really want to get into for my fall just reads and all of that. Not all of these are fantasy again. The first one is Lady Macbeth by Ava Reid. So I love Ava Reid's writing. I read her book, A Study in Drowning, and I absolutely loved it. And so I'm really excited to see what she has for Lady Macbeth because one thing about me is that for some reason, Macbeth is that Shakespeare play that follows me around wherever I go. Like, I don't know what it is about Macbeth that is haunting me exactly, but I feel like everyone has like that one Shakespeare play that just like will follow them around wherever they go. And for me, that is Macbeth. I don't know what that says about me, but for some reason, throughout my whole life, I've always been doing like novel studies about Macbeth. I did one in grade 4, and then I did one in grade 11 for high school, and then I did it in like my first year of university, like during an elective. So I know Macbeth better than a lot of people do. So I'm excited to see what Ava Reid has to say about Lady Macbeth because Lady Macbeth is that character. I will say she is an icon. The next book I have is Iron Widow by Jiren J. Zhao. And that one, I believe, is sort of sci fi based off of Chinese mythology and all of that. So I've been wanting to read it for a long time. And I know it's part of a series, but like the next books haven't been released yet or anything like that. So I've been just taking my time getting to that. And then the next book I have is A Little Life by Hanya Yanagihara. And I got A Little Life a while ago. I've just been putting it off because I've just heard so I know it's a sad book. I know it's a sad book. And so I've just been trying to mentally prepare for that. And I feel like fall and winter are also the times where I read a lot more like depressing books, I guess, or a lot more emotional books. So I thought I guess this fall, it would be good for me to read a really depressing book. So excited, but also not excited for that. And then the next book I have is Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies by Heather Fawcett. Yeah, I've got this book again back in the spring. Just could not get into it for the spring. Wasn't feeling it. The vibes were not there. But I think for fall, I heard it's a cozy fantasy, so it sounds like it's going to be a good fall winter vibe book. So can't wait to read that. And then the last book I have is Throne of the Fallen by Carrie Maniscalco. Anyways, I just picked that up from like my last bookstore haul because it was $20 and I have been wanting to read it for the longest time because I've heard good things about it. So, yeah, that is what's on my fall TBR right now. And then obviously I also have like other books that I'm probably going to be reading in the fall for like themed videos and all of that. So the reason why I haven't included that in here is because I want y'all to be surprised when you look at my page. Some of them are a bit unhinged and all of that, but to give you some hints, there's a lot of dystopian books I am planning on reading this fall for some reason. I don't know why I'm in my dystopian era right now, but that's what I have. And yeah, let's also now get into some recommendations. For recommendations, a lot of these recommendations are books that I read last fall and winter and I just like really enjoyed. So hopefully you'll find some books that maybe you like in this long list of recommendations I have. Again, some of these are really popular on like TikTok and all that and on YouTube. Maybe I'll convince you to read some of these books in the fall. So the first book I have it's a series and it's Immortal Longings by Chloe Gong. So she's releasing the second book, I believe, this October. I don't know if it's been released yet or not, but it's part of her Vilest Things book series. I am Chloe Gong's number one fan. I love every book she's released, and so I'm super excited to read that second book as well. But what I like about Immortal Longings is it has a really interesting fantasy element to it in which like the citizens of the city have this power to like jump bodies. So Immortal Longings by Chloe Gong, highly recommend. The next series I have is the Poppy War series by R.F. Kuang. This series is just like such a emotional roller coaster and all of that. And one thing about Art Kwong is a lot of the time she bases her books off of, real events that happened in history, and so this one is inspired by the Second Sino-Japanese War and all of that. So a lot of the things that happen in the series are very dark, very emotional. There definitely is a fantasy element to it as well. It's one of the first like fantasy series I picked up after like getting back into reading again, and something about R. Kwong's writing and just the idea she has and just the way she just, you know, displays everything is so beautiful, but also like so horrific. Read trigger warnings, read definitely for this one, read about what this book series is about because for some reason people are marketing this as like enemies to lovers, like romance fantasy book. This is not the case. Like this is truly like historical fantasy. It is dark, it is emotional, it is graphic. And so yeah, just actually read, like do the research yourself on what this book series is about and if you think you would be interested. The next book series we have is the Secret Shanghai series by Chloe Gong again. The Secret Shanghai series is Chloe Gong's sort of like Shakespeare retelling series. I don't know why I'm like giving a lot of Shakespearean recommendations. It's about Shanghai, 1920s, and there's a monster running loose in the city. And the first book in that series is These Violent Delights, and that is the Romeo and Juliet sort of retelling. And I think I am drawn to this one a lot more because I'm an Asian American girl, and there are a lot of themes that I, as an Asian American girl, resonate with. And so, overall, it's a fantasy romance series. There's these violent delights and our violent ends, and then there's the sort of spin-off series or the spin-off books, Foul Lady Fortune and Foul Heart Huntsman. That is the Secret Shanghai series by Chloe Gong. The next book series I have are by Miss Jennifer Lynn Barnes. So the first one, obviously, The Inheritance Games. Um, I feel like the Inheritance Games is just like super popular now, so I'm not going to get into it, but yeah, it's like it just if you love a mystery, if you love, solving puzzles, if you love all those types of things, you're going to love Inheritance Games. It's a really fun book series, and then there's also now a spin-off book series to it which has just been released like this summer. So it's like right there you have 5 books you can read, put on your TBR. And then the next books I have is the Natural series, also by Jennifer Lynn Barnes. If you've been watching literally any video on my channel, you know I will take every chance I get to mention The Naturals. So The Naturals is like one of my favorite series of all time. It is pretty much if you are a fan of Criminal Minds, if you love reading about FBI agents, if you love reading about serial killers and all that, you're going to love this book series. It's a 4 book series, and it's pretty much about the FBI recruiting these teenagers to help them solve FBI cold cases. Obviously, there's more mysteries that they have to uncover, but overall, it's a great book series to read in the fall. It's so fun, and it just is pretty much Criminal Minds but with teenagers. And onto the sort of theme of solving mysteries, murder, and all that. Another book series to read is A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I'm not going to get into it because I feel like everyone mentions that. So on to the next one. The next recommendation I have is Babel by R.F. Kuang. This is her standalone novel. It's adult fantasy. There's some magical realism to it. It pretty much talks about the themes of like the active translation. It's a very interesting book that has a lot of thematic elements about just like colonialism and the act of translation and the things we lose while translating. I highly recommend that one if you haven't read that book already. The next series I have are the Carval and Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogies by Stephanie Garber. I personally myself am a Once Upon a Broken Heart fan. I was not a huge fan of Carval, but I will say that they're so fall vibey that I'm just like I can't help but mention it because it's like I read these books in the fall, and it's like I think I had a better time like reading it in the fall and like then if I were to like read it in the spring or summer. So I think fall and winter are like the perfect times to read those books. The next book I have to recommend is A Study in Drowning by Ava Reed. This one is dark academia. There's some enemies to lover elements and all of that. But if you want a book that is dark academia and has like beautiful writing that makes like it's like the writing so beautiful that it's like all the creepy elements like make you feel like you're in like this like really like musty and like creepy like you know environment, you would love this book. I'm literally like I feel it in my bones while reading it, like what she's describing. And so I don't a lot of the times I don't read books like that. And so like finally being able to like actually like feel like I'm in the environment where this girl is like crazy. Next book I have is Curious Tides by Pascal Lascelles. And I believe the second book is coming out sometime this fall as well. So it is a series, but Curious Tides is also dark academia. It takes place at this boarding school, and pretty much at this boarding school, all of these kids have the ability to wield certain elements, but it's based off of like the phases of the moon and all of that. So it's like a cool concept and all of that. I do think it is a bit slower. The story just moves a bit slow and all that. And so if you're looking for like a really quick book series, you're probably not going to get it from this one. But personally, to me, it's like when it comes to fall, I read books again super fast. So when it comes to a book that actually like makes me slow down and just like helps me appreciate the writing of everything, I will always take one of those books. So Curious Tides is that to me, like I think I rated it 5 stars just because I loved like the writing of it, the elements, the characters. Like, I don't know. There's something about this book that I just like devoured. I ate up. I thought the concept of it was really cool. Again, some people, I think this one has a lot of mixed reviews, and I feel like it's like if you get it, you get it, and if you don't, you don't. Like that's how I feel about this book. The next recommendation I have is If I Have to Be Haunted by Miranda Sun. This one is very much like for spooky season. It's for Halloween. It's pretty much about this young Chinese girl who has this ability to see ghosts, and then all of a sudden one day her school like enemy nemesis, like he ends up dying, and so they have to work together to sort of see why he became a ghost and all of that. And it's a really fun read. So if you like enemies to lovers, if you like banter between characters, it's a really fun read. Again, this one is young adult, so it's like these are teenagers and all of that, but overall I just remember reading it and having a pretty good time reading it. Next recommendations I have, this is a book series again, Miss Jennifer Lynn Barnes. um she is just my queen, and so I've practically read all of the book series she has written. So the next book series I have is a fixer series, and there's only 2 books in this series, so it's a duology. But if she wants to write a third or a fourth or a fifth in the series, I would be so stoked. And pretty much it's about this girl who is pretty much move she has to move back in with like her older sister who lives in Washington DC, I believe, and her sister is a fixer, so she works with like the a lot of politicians and all of that to sort of fix their problems. And so it's like a really interesting concept. And one thing I love about Miss Jennifer Lynn Barnes is like she has the most interesting concepts for books, and she does it well. The next book I have is The Scarlet Alchemist by Kylie Lee Baker. And this one is a young adult fantasy book. And I would say it's very similar, but also very different from the Poppy War. Like, if you like the protagonist in the Poppy War, you'll like the protagonist in the Scarlet Alchemist, because she's this young girl who pretty much knows how to perform dark alchemy, aka bring people back to life from the dead using alchemy. So she tries to become like this royal alchemist and all that. And so it's a really interesting book. It's also very unhinged. So the stuff that happens, I'm kind of just like, whoa, what is happening? But I'm also like, I'm invested. So yeah, that is The Scarlet Alchemist by Kylie Lee Baker. I believe it's a series, but I don't know when the second book is gonna be released. And the next series I have is the Cruel Prince series. Speaking of like unhinged characters, so the Cruel Prince series by Holly Black. A lot of the stuff that happens in the Cruel Prince series is just like very unhinged in itself. I'm not going to get into that one because I feel like that's a popular book series that doesn't really need an explanation. Next series I have Magnolia Parks. If you want to read some, literary fiction romance book, read Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. Does the writing get a little bit cringy sometimes? Oh, absolutely. But if you love rich people and their problems and their drama, highly recommend the Magnolia Park series. Personally, for me, I'm a Daisy Hates girly, so it's like the Daisy Hates books are just like are so good. Magnolia Parks, I've learned to tolerate her. So yeah, but if you just want like a quick little, romance, I say quick little, and like these books are like 500 pages long, but to me they're quick. Anyways, the next book series I have again for romance is the Maple Hill series by Hannah Grace. Yes, this is a hockey romance series, and yes, I know this sounds so unhinged. So the Maple Hill series is the series that has the book Icebreaker in it. Personally, I think you can skip Icebreaker. Like, if you want to know what Icebreaker is about, I have a whole video on my channel explaining the first book of Icebreaker just because it's so unserious and so crazy and just so unhinged. But it's like the next two books in the series are like genuinely good. Like, Wildfire is pretty good, and then Daydream is her latest release. It just got released like 2 weeks ago or so. I don't even know when I'm releasing this video, but it got released as of recently, and I like ate it up. I read it so quickly, and like Daydream is genuinely a good book, and I'm not just saying that because like. And I'm not just saying that. Like, it's genuinely a good book. And so I really think Hannah Grace just like she saw the criticism she got from Icebreaker and all that, and she took those to heart. And she's like, you know what? I'm going to fix what I wrote in that first book. And she did. She did. Like, these characters, the characters are great. The story is great. Like, the themes that they talk about are great. And I was just like, this book doesn't feel like Icebreaker at all. And I am so happy for that. So happy for Hannah Grace that she found her footing and she decided to um reverse the trauma she caused in Icebreaker. If you know, you know. And then the final recommendation I have for books to read is The Invisible Life of Addie LaRue by V.E. Schwab. I read this back in the spring, and I just think I would have had a better time reading it if I read it in the fall. Again, that's just me being a mood reader. Pretty much it's about this girl named Addie LaRue, and she practically just like makes a deal with the devil one day, and pretty much she's trying to get out of this arranged marriage that her parents put her in, and pretty much the deal she makes is that she gets out of this marriage, but in doing so everyone forgets who she is, forgets her name, doesn't know who she is, who she exists. No one remembers her name, and she also can't like say her name or anything. Like, she's cursed to like pretty much be this invisible person. And so yeah, it's a really interesting book and all that. Personally for me, I wasn't necessarily sure about the ending, but yeah, that's all I'm going to say about that. Those are the recommendations I have for Fantasy Fall, even though not all of these books are fantasy related. But whatever, I like breaking rules, and so should you. So yeah, thank you for watching this video. Hopefully you have some recommendations to put on your TBR. If you don't, that just means you're good at reading books. Thank you for watching this video, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye!